you may think you're a good person, but we don't.
It is necessary for you to be accountable to the actions and the things that you did do before you can move on.
Exactly. And so many of us have discomfort around that idea of earning trust because we feel as though we are being tested. And it's like, to a degree, yes. Why should I trust something I haven't tested before?
Folks will listen to this and be like, I don't have to prove myself to anyone.
You're not going to have friends. It's okay.
Even glowing and growing, right? We think about it as how do I bring out the best in myself? But sometimes glowing and growing is about how can I bring out the best in my sister?
That's so good. Hello and welcome to the To My Sisters podcast. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Renee, and we are your online sisters and hosts of the To My Sisters podcast.
We are all about promoting the wellness, growth and development of a community of sisters across the world.
And in today's episode, it's going to be a deep one because we're dealing with the trauma that you caused. Being the villain in somebody else's story. Yeah. This episode has been on the back burner for a while. I've been looking for the right time to start, getting into it. But I think just off the back of conversations I've even been having recently with like our friends and stuff, I realized how important it is to take ownership and accountability on the whole glowing and growing journey, because oftentimes we can be the perpetrators and not just the victims. So yeah, I feel like this is going to be a good one. Deep one.
I think so too.
But a good one. Yeah. But before we get into it, we have got a couple of housekeeping announcements.
Let's go.
The first is the Vision Challenge winner for October. We have officially concluded spooky season.
Oh God.
Officially, you know what made me laugh actually? I will never forget seeing you try the pumpkin spice latte.
Oh, it's awful, guys. Okay, it could have just been my one. So pumpkin spice lovers, keep it to yourselves. I don't really want to fight. I don't care. I don't care enough. But it's actually not nice.
So when you tasted it, like what was
it? Tasted like hot dog water. No, I'm being so serious. But you know what? It got a bit better because then the sweetness. Yeah. So exactly. But it was reminiscent of that. Right. And that's what threw me off completely. And my first question was, why do people like this? My second is, wow, Starbucks is never going to sponsor me ever. So
Starbucks, I'm still here and loyal though. You can send me a couple the hot ones. You had it cold though, didn't you? Maybe that.
But I don't like hot drinks.
Hot beverages. So there's no saving grace. Yeah. Okay. Well, cut the cameras then. Starbucks, if you're listening, we still love you, just not that one.
No, so that's the thing. I like Starbucks, which is why I was there, right? Yeah. And I wanted to try it. That particular beverage is not
drink.
For me.
I hear it.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone.
No.
Interesting. But no, that made me laugh. Anyways, back to housekeeping. Vision 10 challenge winner. Can I get a drum roll, please? We would like to say a big congratulations to Miss Tando _PK on Instagram. Now, all of you guys have been mad consistent. Honestly, it's been so beautiful.
So pleased
seeing
to see
everybody working out. We were seeing the lifters, we were seeing the runners, we were seeing all sorts of people, and we absolutely loved it and adored it. And we hope that you guys felt really, really proud of yourselves for the consistency that you showed and the work that you put in this month, because it was beautiful to see. So congratulations to all of you, but special congratulations to Miss Tando. We will be in touch very soon to help you with your little GBP. Christmas is coming.
Want somebody.
We need the money to get those presents and to enjoy. So, but not to worry, sisters. There is still 2 more opportunities for you to win a challenge. Now, for the November challenge, we're not going to tell you what it is yet.
You'll have to come back next week to find out that one.
Next week.
Don't worry.
You'll find out.
It won't take 30 days to complete it.
Oh, no.
That's why we're waiting to tell you.
In fact, it might just be instantaneous. For real? We need you guys. Yeah.
But
that's all we're going to say on it.
Yeah.
Stay posted next week. In fact, next week is bound to be a very big week. Damn. Live show on Saturday. All we're going to say
is turn on your notifications for all things TMS.
Honestly.
Follow the Instagram, the TikTok, everywhere you can follow us there, because you want to stay in the loop. Sign up to the mailing list, in fact, because you won't miss a thing.
You absolutely must. Well, there you have it, sisters. Stay tuned. Moving on to the ding dilemma. Let's get into it. Hi, Courtney and Renee.
Hey, baby girl.
First, thank you both for the way you let God use you on behalf of so many of us and for your vulnerability and encouragement. You've started.
Wow.
You two are such blessings and encourage me to stay committed to my glowing and growing TMS journey. Heart, you two babes.
Wow.
I'm currently struggling because it feels as if a close friend is quiet quitting, and not at their job, but in our friendship.
Ooh.
They have been less communicative, but not to the point of fully ghosting. They haven't totally disengaged and still respond/react in group chats, but our one-to-one time has decreased and has involved me taking more of the initiative recently, which is different than how it used to be. I.e. balanced. I also noticed that they weren't regularly sharing big life events with me that I'd expect them to, and I'd had to explicitly ask about particular life event updates that I knew were lined up, only to find out they had already happened earlier, and it made me wonder, if I hadn't asked, would they just not have updated me like they used to? What's causing this change? Am I crazy or seeing something not for what it really is? I'm struggling because I don't know if the right response is to be direct and confrontational, and how to even go about confronting this in the right way. I appreciate you both and wish you the best.
Ooh, okay. I don't think this is necessarily am I going to be confrontational if I bring this up? I do think though you need to just be honest and upfront about what you've observed if you're trying to get to the root of it. There's no point trying to assume what has happened. If you've noticed a change in pattern of behavior, the only thing that is required and the only answer to this is to go and ask the questions. So I do think having that sit down and just being like, hey, you know, is something happening between us? I've noticed XYZ, all the things that you've explained, and I want to know if I've done anything wrong, if there's anything I could be doing like to help you, but is there something that has caused this distance between us, and how do we resolve it, and how are you feeling about the friendship? I think those sorts of conversations always feel very daunting to have because we don't need to have them often, but when we do need to have them, it's very important that we have them as soon as possible. You don't want to let anything fester, even though you're unaware of what may have happened. You don't want anything to fester. You don't want this to go on for too long, or for the friendship to just fizzle out because it seems like, well, they're giving up, I'm going to start letting go as well. If this is a friendship you deem worthy of your time, your affection, I mean, you've written us a whole email about it, so clearly this is on your mind. I would take time to sit down with my friend and be like, hey, I've noticed XYZ. I just want to know what's going on, and let's just be honest with each other about it, because I do want to repair this friendship because it means a lot to me. And you may be shocked to find that maybe it has nothing to do with you and it's actually, you know, something that's happening in their personal life, or maybe it is something to do with you, and that actually presents you with the opportunity to fix it, or at least have the opportunity to have a conversation about it and identify where the root of the issue may have been. And it's, you don't know what you're going to hear in response. You can't really prepare yourself for that. But the only thing I would say in preparation is just open up your heart to just realize that, like, if the aim of this conversation is reconciliation, you have to be ready to come with solutions to what it is that you hear. And friendships take work, and it could be that, you know, expectations may have changed, schedules may have changed, feelings may have changed for whatever which reason. But I think that this just warrants a good old sit down and conversation, and both of you prioritizing that. So I don't think you're reading into it too much. I do think you need to start, you know, inquiring and opening things up a little bit more. How about you, Miss Renee?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think most, if not all, relationships will require some kind of intervention at a point where, you know, there's just lots of stuff going on both parties' sides. And I think for you, there's definitely a lot of like gaslighting yourself a little bit in this dilemma, insofar as you're wondering whether is it just you that's feeling this, or like you're questioning the validity of like your feelings. I think that because it's something that you've observed over time and something that you've been feeling over time, it is definitely worth like expressing it to your friend, and also remembering that this is your friend at the end of the day. This is someone you care about quite a lot. You have history with this person and you're very close to them. And as Courtney said, the aim of the game, at least for you, is reconciliation and really trying to figure out where are you guys at in your relationship and how can this be repaired. So in terms of like being confrontational, I wouldn't see it as an opportunity to be confrontational, but more so an opportunity to be direct in the hope of reconciling with your friend. And I think that, you know, friendships are super important, man. And like friendship breakups, we've spoken about it in numerous other episodes, but friendship troubles and friendship breakups can be really painful. And I think it's something that we don't give enough like work or time to really unpacking. So I think definitely it warrants a conversation, and a face-to-face one if you can have it. No like text message or call or anything like that.
For sure.
Genuinely push to have the conversation, and then, you know, openly talk about, you know, your thoughts and feelings on the things that you've noticed as well. And I would also say a good tip is to like really focus on the actions as well, rather than saying you've done this. Try and frame it around, these are the actions that you have like done, this is how it's made me feel, or like this is how it's come across. Because you might find equally that, you know, some of the ways that she's been behaving and moving may not necessarily be a conscious, this is not to invalidate you at all, but it may not be a conscious thing, or it may be a result of something else. So give her the opportunity and the space to also engage. It may be a really positive conversation, but equally it also might be a negative one. So just be prepared to, you know, for that transparency and what that transparency will yield. And if it is a case that, you know, she's gotten to a place where she kind of needs some space from the relationship, then at least, you know, as opposed to just dragging things out and building up that resentment over time. So I think the wisest thing to do, the straightforward thing to do, is sit down, conversation. We need an intervention. This is what's happening between us, and I'm willing to fix this, but I need to know what you're thinking, what you're feeling. This is how I'm thinking. This is how I'm feeling. So yeah. Relationships are tough, man. They actually work. They require active work.
Yeah. But don't let this one go easily. Don't like just let it fizzle out and fade away. You might regret it in the future. So yeah, this is a stepping stone. It could actually help bring you closer, actually.
There we go. It really, really could.
Wow, I said actually so many times.
That's okay.
Said actually, well, actually. It might bring you closer, actually.
There's a lot of actuallys in there.
Actually, yeah.
Love actually.
Yes.
Sister, we hope that was helpful. Please have the conversation with your sister. And of course, sisters, drop it like it's hot in the YouTube comments below if you are watching on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, Apple, hop on over, share your thoughts. Have you dealt with a friendship intervention? Have you gone for a season where you were either the sister that was trying to withdraw, or you were the sister where folks were withdrawing from you and you were just like not understanding what was going on? So let us know if you have any pearls of wisdom to share with our good sister. And I think it's a really nice segue into the meat and bones of the topic.
Let's talk about it.
The traumas.
Oh. The traumas. But yeah, upon reflection around like this glowing and growing journey that we're on and the sisters are on with us, one of the things that, you know, I found that many of us have to confront is our character. And I think sometimes in the glowing and growing journey, we can romanticize dealing with character, thinking it's just about like building up and not necessarily also confronting like poor habits. So I actually wanted to start with, in terms of your own like glowing and growing journey and what you've observed, what did you find, or what have you found difficult about confronting aspects of yourself or character traits that you may not have liked about yourself? I think the biggest hurdle sometimes to overcome is the fact that you understand why you've done certain things. So it's easy to make not just excuses, but reasons for why you should hold on to a poor habit, a poor mindset, or a poor attitude towards a particular person or a particular circumstance. And I think that's the hardest thing to overcome, because you know your reasons are valid. And oftentimes with other people, we see their behavior, their attitude, their perspective is kind of unacceptable because we cannot understand their reasons, because we weren't there, we didn't feel it. But with us, it's like we can experience so much empathy because it's like we are the ones who felt it. Do you get what I mean? So it's like, the reason why I'm holding on to that unforgiveness, or the reason why I treat that person poorly, or the reason why I snap at certain things is because I know the pain, right? And I'm bearing the scars. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to get to the point where you're like, yeah, I did go through that. Yes, my anger, my fear, my pain is valid. But at this point, it's not excusable anymore. You know, you kind of have to not just get over it, but you have to grow through it. Like, you have to grow up. And that's not pretty sometimes, because sometimes you feel as though you own your pain, right? And learning to let it go kind of feels like, okay, so am I saying it didn't happen? Am I saying it didn't hurt me? And it's like, no. scars are always there. They just don't hurt all the time. Well, forever. They don't hurt. So kind of responding to the pain as if it was fresh, it's proof that your infection has gotten infected. Your scar's been infected, right? Rather than you're still wounded freshly. And I think that's one of the hardest things for me to have overcome over this, glowing and growing journey. Even like 7 years deep into it, it definitely feels like, things that you thought you're over and you've grown from, something fresh triggers it, or something fresh, makes you, just tickles you a little bit. You're like, there's still some work to do here. How about you?
I love that, man. And definitely something that resonates with me. I think for me, one of the things that I find really difficult about like dealing with character is accepting there are actually significant flaws. Like the actual acceptance of the flaws of like, damn, that about me is bad. Like I think, at least for me, growing up and having perfectionist tendencies, thinking that you've done so much work to present as somebody that's good, but then having to confront with the fact that actually there's some rotten parts about you. Oh my goodness, that's just like mind blowing. It's just like that. I've worked so hard to be perfect, and you're telling me there's a chink in my armor. It's that kind of thing for me that I found really difficult going into this glowing and growing journey, and this idea of like growing, right? I think sometimes for us as women, having to have arrived at a particular destination or present as, already ideal, or having worked on yourself, it can be so frustrating when you like sit down with yourself and you really reflect on some of the things that you've done, or some of the people you've entertained, or the environments that you've been in, and you're kind of like, damn,
why did I do that?
Why? Knowing that I've done all of these kind of things to make sure that I can be a better person, to make sure that I can be Miss Perfect, to make sure that, I'm at the top of the top, the creme de la creme, but still my cream ain't creaming, man. It's just not, you know what I mean? It's
not where it should be.
Have you ever had like dessert that's like a little stale?
Yeah.
It was giving that. Yeah. Like it's so pretty, it still looks kind of good, but it's like you taste it and it's like, this has been in the fridge a little too long. Like
I hear it. That's actually a really good analogy. Yeah.
It's like, man, it hurts because it hurts because you don't want to be bad, and like you don't want to be a person that does those kind of things. And I think also for me, I used to think in black and whites, so I was very like harsh on myself. So it was kind of like when I did do bad things, or when I did recognize a flaw, I zeroed in on that flaw like obsessively. Like I was just like, damn, I did this, or like, oh, my anger, or I had a tendency to stonewall quite a bit, so it's kind of like just completely shut down and like I'm not engaging emotionally. And it's like when you pick a flaw and you zero in on it and you completely allow your identity to be subsumed by the fact that you have a flaw, it can be so difficult to move on, because that becomes your identity, right? The fact that I can't do this thing, or that I'm bad at this, or like this element of my character is poor at the moment. So those were some of the things that I struggled with, but I think it's actually another great segue into this whole idea of the repercussions of some of our poor characters or our flaws, namely in engaging with other people. So thinking about this, even the title of this episode being dealing with the trauma that you caused, what are your thoughts or like your experiences around poor character or poor choices resulting in trauma or causing pain or discomfort to other people?
Oh, unfortunately, I have too many to count. You know what's so funny? I think last week, it was my younger sister's birthday, and we were on a FaceTime call. My cousins joined the call, and it was really cute.
Family.
My cousins are growing up now, and my sister's grown, so it's kind of like, let's be friends. And in the conversation, my younger cousin was like, you used to be a really mean person. And I thought,
well, damn.
Firstly, I'm not even the host of this call, so where's this coming from? Second, this is not the subject of this call. We're wishing my sister a happy birthday. And thirdly, where the hell did that come from?
Screaming.
And so she was like, you're great now. Like, you've really changed now. But you used to be like a mean person. And I was like, unfortunately, you're not the first person to tell me this. And also, I already know this, right? So it's very much like, okay, you used to be a really mean person. And it made me think, obviously my immediate reaction was like, shut up.
Yes.
How dare you?
Did you have to do this now?
It was very much like, rah, that felt like an attack, but I had to reframe my processing of it to be like, she's telling you that you've really made progress, right? And that like, she acknowledges who you used to be and who you are now. And the fact that there's a clear contrast between those things is really good.
Yeah,
but also
yeah.
it means acknowledging that you did used to be a bad person, and it was very much so noticeable. Like I think with our personal growth journeys, we can often isolate our flaws as, oh, this is something I've noticed in myself. And it's like, no, other people have noticed it in you too. You know, whether they've confronted you on it or not, other people have noticed your bad attitude. Other people have noticed your bullying, or the fact that you're sharp-tongued, or the fact that you're not present. Like, people have noticed that. And sometimes in the case of like my younger cousin, people can't actually come to you and tell you because they feel like, are you going to snap at me if I tell you? Am I in a position to tell you? But also I'm on the receiving end of this bad behavior. And I think that's one thing to note. Sometimes with the trauma that you have caused people, you don't notice it until years later, or you're not aware of it until years later. And there are always two sides to, or multiple sides to, every interaction and every occurrence. And so for me, like, looking at who I used to be when I was younger, I see it through the lens of, this is why I was doing that, this is why I was so cold, this is why XYZ, whereas she's seeing it as, why don't you love me? Why don't you care for me? What the heck has happened? You know? And I think it's important to kind of listen to the people who you're interacting with when you are on your glowing and growing journey, because it's easy to become very and you know, I'm a big proponent of self-awareness and I'm always promoting it, but it's very easy to become self-consumed in your awareness and not realize that a part of you being self-aware is also knowing how you are to other people. And you can't always see that. You need other people's lens and other people's perspective. And sometimes that criticism feels harsh. Sometimes that criticism feels like it's going to provoke an argument. But it doesn't need to. Sometimes you just have to receive the honesty of other people as, okay, here's another point for you to actually work on, because you may think you're a good person, but we don't. And what does that mean? And I think also in a generation where it's like, who are you to judge me? And who are you to, like, why F everyone else's opinions? Only God can judge me. It's kind of like, okay, if you want to do life alone, keep doing that. Or if you want to keep changing up your friendship circle and changing up your family and changing up people you're around, keep thinking that way, that like you are the beginning and the end of your growth. You're not, you know, or your transformation. You're not. So it's been a roller coaster. When she was like, oh, you used to be a mean person, I was like, rah, I actually did. And like, I feel bad to know that because I've heard this from other people in my life who were a bit closer, but because we grew up quite close, to be fair, but you know, your younger cousins is kind of like your extended family. You're my sisters, don't get me wrong, because in our culture, that's how we grew up. But it wasn't like I saw you every day or things like that. So I paid attention to the feedback of like my immediate family, my mum, my dad, my sister, like people I grew up in the household with. But then to hear somebody on the peripheries felt an impact from my behavior, it was kind of like, bad character can ricochet. Like, it can really cause ripples further than you probably think. Like, how many, you know, you've got your siblings, you've got your parents, but then how many cousins, aunties, uncles, friends, co-workers have been affected by your bad attitude? Do you get what I mean? Or by your poor character, whether it's warranted or not. So it's kind of thinking now like, the way I behave, the things that I say, the things I have done are actually impactful on the lives of other people, whether I recognize it or not. What does that mean for the shaping of my character and my development as well? That awareness. And I think we as women need to realize that, like, we are very impactful and we are very as people, we are very impactful and very powerful in the fact that our presence can cause people to feel something, and that feeling can last with them for a lifetime. Right. So now being more mindful of, what does my presence actually cause people to feel? I think that's what has come more into my consciousness now. It's kind of like, when I'm around people, they feel something. I want that to be positive. Yeah. How about you?
Wow. No, Courtney, that was beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Especially when you were, sorry. So much character development.
No.
Oh, so heartwarming. Okay.
So flipping funny.
Oh, so much character development.
So much growth.
The growth. It was just heartwarming, man. But I really loved.
How about you?
I loved what you were saying about the fact that bad character ricochets, right? And I was literally in my mind, I was thinking something along the same lines, but I was also thinking about the fact that like trauma just replicates more trauma and it just makes the wound deeper. So I think of like when you have like a cut, for example, or like you bash your knee against something or fall over, the correct like way to deal with it is to find a way to heal it, right? Or to get back up or get away from that kind of behavior that created that trauma. But for many of us that are reperpetrating trauma, we're just creating a deeper wound,
right?
And the thing is, whilst in that analogy it's only one person that's dealing with the effects of that, the depth of that wound, for some of us it's a generational wound where it's like, whilst we're dealing with the trauma that was inflicted to us by other people, we're then inflicting further trauma within our families or within our friendships and stuff. And it can be, by the time that somebody is ready to deal with that wound, damn, we need to get like, you guys need to put like morphine, a drip or something just to be able to start taking things out. But that's what that made me reflect on. I think for me, one of the difficulties that I found around like dealing with the trauma or the pain that I caused other people was actually receiving the feedback. I think it can be really hard to hear from other people that you've been bad. Yeah. Like I think even with the whole self-awareness stuff, it's like, oh yeah, I know that I've done X, Y, Z, or I know that I've been rude, or I know that I've been mean or dismissive. But to actually hear somebody say, you've hurt me, sucks. Yeah. It really, really sucks. And I think like many folks, it's a hard thing to deal with because it's like, damn, now I actually have to take accountability for the fact that something I've done has caused somebody else pain. Yeah. So like for me, I often think of the saying that your superpower can easily make you a villain if you're not careful. And for me, like I'm very sharp with like my words. Like I love writing, I love like speaking life into people, all that kind of stuff. But I can be quite dismissive, or I can be rude, or like in the past I was just quick to speak. That kind of behavior can be very difficult when you're dealing with people because words are like, they have such transformative power. And in terms of what you were saying around like the feelings that you leave with people are so important. Spoken word, the way that you interact with people can really have such an impact on them. And even now, like, you know, when you're having like a good day, it just takes one person to say something or do something and all of a sudden your entire day is ruined. And you're just feeling bad. Yeah. To be somebody that is actually a perpetrator of that in the past is very difficult because it's like, oh damn, I may have contributed to somebody having a bad day or even a bad season, because these are the things that people say over themselves, or they're the things that people remember about themselves much later down the line. And then when I think about something like this, like the To My Sisters podcast, or I think about some of the work that we're doing now, and we see the transformative power of words and the transformative power of conversations, it makes me really think like, damn, we need to be way more conscious about the way that we use our behavior, our words, and focus on building our character in order to have that effect, because the opposite is so dangerous. And I think similarly, like with my siblings, for example, I think we can tend to be very like flippant with our siblings. And I think of like my little sisters, I definitely had a lot. You guys, you're listening, you know, I had more patience with you than you deserved. You 110% know. But in the conversations that I have with my little sisters, even, I'm just like, damn, you guys have grown so much. And we have like transparent conversations around like our childhood and stuff like that. And hearing, you know, some of the commentary as well, insofar as, Renee, sometimes you're a bit sharp with us, or like sometimes you're a little bit like, you knew what you were doing in terms of like winding up the bobbin, because my sisters are quite different in the sense of they're very their reactions can be more visceral and they're a lot more like physical. So it's just like you'll say something and that's enough to set someone off, right? And just reflecting on that and really understanding, like, you knowing a person intimately is not an excuse, like, is not an excuse to try and rile them up, and it's not an excuse for you to press their buttons. There's a reason why when we say the people that we open up to either have the power to completely transform us and build us up, or completely to destroy us, right? Because when you know someone intimately, you know what buttons to press and push. And it's dependent on you and the way that you've developed your character, what result you get. So I think for me, it was very much dealing with the fact that I've actually been bad, but also dealing with the fact that I have to hear it as well and really process and take accountability for the fact that, damn, this thing that you have done has hurt this person in this way. Like, you have to sit with that. And I think that sometimes, even in the glowing and growing journey, we can be very quick to dismiss what we've done. Because we've decided to become this new person. Oh, that was the old me, you know. These people are not allowing me to forget, or like they're not allowing me to change who I used to be. I hear it, sis. I hear it. But at the same time, I think it is necessary for you to be accountable to the actions and the things that you did do before you can move on.
Exactly. And it's also remembering, because we say this all the time on the podcast, right? But it's a grace that we often don't afford to other people, which is healing is a process. So as much as you may have changed, as much as you may have even apologized, somebody else is healing, they're going through that process. And sometimes that process looks like, I'm still hurt. I have said I've forgiven you, but I'm actually still hurt. And so it's not that some people are trying to, you know, I guess, condemn you to who you used to be. They're just still letting go of the pain. And that's a process. And that requires your patience, especially as the perpetrator. And I think with trying to let go of who you used to be, sometimes it's a good reminder of how far you've come and what you shouldn't go back to as well. Like, don't think of yourself in these really, you know, idyllic, angelic, like, I've done so much glowing and growing, I can just let go of everything. I think to some degree, those bad parts of us are still in us. It's just we've stopped feeding it, right? We've stopped feeding it and we've put it to bed and we've put it to rest and we've said, okay, I now know how to cope with this, or I now know how to overcome these feelings. But don't think that they can't rise up in you again. Right. And I think when we try to paint ourselves as, oh, that was just the old me, we forget that some of us still have a sleeping monster inside. And it's okay, because all people have it. Right. But it's now not fooling yourself into thinking that could never be me, because then what happens the day that you erupt, or something really bad happens and it awakens not just what used to be in you, but something even worse, right? I think it keeps us mindful of the fact that, hey, you've come a long way and keep going, right? But don't get comfortable, don't get complacent, don't get ignorant of the fact that you are a dynamic person, and a part of that dynamic nature isn't all good.
No, I love that. And I think actually to push it out to the other end of the extreme, where there's some folks who are potentially listening to this, or some folks just out there in the world who feel like they can't change. Like they feel like they're a slave to the way that they behave, or they're a slave to their trauma, or there's just certain things that trigger them and they erupt. Like, what would you say to those people that feel as though they can't escape their bad character, or they can't escape certain habits or behaviors that they've cultivated?
You can, number one. First of all, you actually can. I know character can feel like something that is very intrinsic, but character is cultivated. Like, it comes down to our experiences, our nurturing, what we have been exposed to, what we consider to be correct and not correct. And I think telling yourself that I can't change is probably what's reinforcing the fact that you're struggling to change. So firstly, accept the fact that, and believe the fact that you can change. But number two, change takes time. So accept that this is a process you're going to have to commit yourself to for the long term, for the long haul. You're probably going to have to be refining your character for the rest of your life. And that's not to say, you know, every season, every day looks like the same aggressive amount of work, reading the same self-help books, or, you know, listening to an episode every day, just being like, let me recondition my brain. This isn't brainwashing. This is character transformation. And that takes a long time. So commit yourself to that journey, but also don't be too harsh on yourself when you find yourself exhibiting behaviors that you have been practicing for probably the majority of your life. And so these new habits and these new responses that you're trying to develop may feel foreign to you. They may not come immediate to you, but the more you practice them, the more they become second nature. So just keep practicing. The next thing is, please go to therapy. If you can, go to therapy or start talking to somebody about the root issues of why you behave this way, and also ways that you can overcome these feelings, coping mechanisms, exercises that you could be doing to help you practice conversations which you may need to be having, somebody who you can keep talking to about these issues, and somebody who can remind you that you can change, right? And that they're walking with you in that development. And I think the last thing would be, you're worth redeeming, like you're worth redemption. I think a lot of us think, I've committed so much bad in the past that I might as well just remain this way because this is how everybody knows me and this is how I know myself. But if you desire redemption, you can have it. Like you can actually have it. Just commit yourself to it. And you are worth redeeming. I don't think there's any past that is so hideous that you should never feel the ability to transform and change. Now, are there going to be consequences for your actions? Yes. Are there going to is there going to be the promise of everything going back to how it used to be? No. However, you as a person and your character, your soul, your heart can be redeemed. It just takes effort and it just takes work and it takes genuine change. And that can't come if you do not have hope that you can change at all or that change is possible. I would also say expose yourself to stories of people who have been changed. Like literally just get yourself around people who will be honest and say, you know, sometimes I slipped up, sometimes I used to deal with this, sometimes I was this sort of person, I'm sorry, you know, or, you know, this is how I overcame, these are the things that I did. Get yourself around people who aren't going to hold false pretense and say, you know, we've just been perfect all of our lives. It's not true. Most people have had something that they've had to change, you know, and being around people who will admit that is pure evidence and testament of the fact that change is possible. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Oh, beautiful. That was so comprehensive, Courtney. That was giving point, evidence, and explanation. And I think I pretty much agree with everything that you said, right? I love the fact that you started with understanding you can change.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we give so much power to our trauma and power to our emotions and like our behaviors that we forget, actually, I'm steering the ship here. I can decide, yes, my circumstances may be difficult. Yes, this was done to me. That doesn't mean I have to do this to other people, right? So even if you were, you know, the mean girl at school, even if you were, you know, not a pleasant person to be around, even if you just didn't open up to people, there's still hope for you.
For sure.
And you need to believe that there is hope for you because it goes far above and beyond other people having hope in you. I think sometimes we can wait for our environment to change before we give ourselves permission to change our character. But actually it's the other way around. Environment comes as a result of character. If you're a person that's actively pursuing good character or actively pursuing character development, then because of your character, you realize that there are certain environments and certain people and certain things that no longer serve the you that you want to be. And by virtue of that, you start moving. So I think it's necessary to really understand that the forces of change start with you and then the propellers start to take off in the other areas as well. But remember that you are driving that wind of change and it's okay. Like accept that things have happened that were bad and accept your responsibility.
Yes.
Accountability. I love that you mentioned there's consequences to your action.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we can think, oh, clean slate, new whatever, new me. I get it. Whilst there's the new you, the old you did some stuff that the new you might have to deal with. And I think that's actually, again, another great facilitation into the conversation around how do you deal with those consequences, right? How do you deal practically with the trauma that you cause? Like, what's the approach to, I've messed up here and I've impacted these people. How can I not only overcome that, but what approach do I take to potentially making amends with people, potentially making amends with like my environment? Like, how do I fill that gap?
You know why this is very much like, because now you're no longer the only factor, right? And sometimes oftentimes on this podcast we talk about, you know, needing to heal, needing to forgive, but I think we can all testify to the fact that all of that is so hard. And so expecting other people to forgive you and to just heal from your mistakes, we also have to appreciate how hard that can be for them. And unfortunately, let's start on the more extreme end. There may be some people who cannot forgive what you did and who you were towards them. Even if you feel like, yo, I didn't do anything that was that bad, everyone has a right to interpret what they have been through, however they experience it. Some people are more sensitive than others. Some people, you may have pushed a button, which isn't a button for you, but it's definitely like the nuclear switch for them. And you have to accept that. And it's hard because you don't want people to hold that image of you, especially if it doesn't align with who you are currently. However, everyone's going through their process, and the same way no one can force us to forgive, or nobody can force us to heal, because that's a personal decision we're making for ourselves, is the same way we cannot force anybody to forgive us or heal from our trauma that we have caused them. So accepting that fact, just accept it. The second thing is dedicate yourself to the work of repenting and showing that you are different. I think a lot of us are just like, I'm different now. Okay, but have you proved it? Have you shown them why they should trust you? And also realizing that one action isn't going to solve this, right? Sending somebody flowers once is not going to be like, hey, I'm sorry, I've changed, love me, trust me, like how you used to. It's actually repetitive actions which show people I've changed, and this change is consistent, and therefore you can feel safe in my friendship here. We have to prove ourselves, and I think for a lot of us with this personal development journey, we get so stuck on our own affirmations that we forget that affirmations are not the be all and end all, nor the full testament of who you actually are. You telling yourself, I'm gonna be the best me I can be today. Okay, but is that the be all and end all of whether you were the best you were today?
Right,
no.
exactly.
Do you get you affirming that's one perspective. That's one opinion. No, because I'm very sick of people being like, I'm this work in progress, and I've affirmed myself of how beautiful I am and how much of a good person and how deserving I am of the things in my life, including the relationships I have. But with other people around you testify of that fact. Just because you've said it to yourself 3 times in the mirror like hocus pocus doesn't mean
that you a good person.
Good person.
Do you know how funny that is?
So I think it's also taking the time to be like, have I proven myself worthy of friendship? Have I proven myself worthy of trust? And I think so many of us are so caught up in, I think I'm a trustworthy person. Of course you do. We all do. You're you. You're the most biased in this situation. The question is, do other people believe that to be true? And do other people think that they're safe in you? And I know we always say, some people are going to hold you back on your glowing and growing journey. Some people, aren't going to agree with your transformation, and some people are haters or don't rely on other people's opinions. But I think when you find your community and you find people who you trust and you believe their relationship with you is something worth fighting for, worth holding on to, you have to trust and give value to their opinion of you. Right. That's a huge part of friendship. What are your opinions of me? And you need to allow people to be honest with you about that fact, number one. And number two, you need to keep proving to them. If you have lost their trust in the past, you need to prove to them why you deserve to gain it back. And so many of us have discomfort around that idea of earning trust because we feel as though we are being tested. And it's like, to a degree, yes. Why should I trust something I haven't tested before? And that doesn't mean, be around people who are not going to let you be free of the past once you've, actually proven you are capable, you are worthy, you're true to what it is you are saying. But it is to say, if people do go through that period of, okay, I'm just going to wait to see, I'm going to give you chances, honor that and just show up. Make sure that you do show up during those times when you get the opportunity to. And make sure that you show up as your best and transformed self as often as you can. Yeah, no, I love that. Show up as your transformed self as often as you can. And I love the fact that you touched on testing, because I think many of us shy away from it or run away from it. We're kind of like, who are you to test me and stuff? The thing about doing relationships is that you are required to show up. And in showing up, you deposit your little crumbs of truth or your crumbs of trust, right? I think that is actually necessary for you, especially if you are working off of bad blood, if you have done something consistently wrong, or if you actually don't have that foundation. It is necessary for you to actually do the work of trying to build up that trust again. So really focus and really dedicate yourself to the work of building that relationship back up, because you're not even building from baseline, you're building to baseline, and then from baseline we can go up from there. So I think that's really, really important. And that accountability piece is so important, because who is there to testify of your goodness? I think of there's this philosophical story or notion that's if a tree is in the middle of a forest and it falls and no one hears the sound, did it actually fall?
absolutes, it fell, but there's no proof because no one was around. I think we can say the same when it comes to character, right? You may be working on your character and you may actually be, you're changing, you're becoming a better person, but there's no one to testify of the fact that you're good.
Yeah.
And this is not to say that you need to like, folks will listen to this and be like, I don't have to prove myself to anyone.
You're not going to have friends. It's okay. No, if you want to hold that attitude, it's all right.
Be lonely. Be in the forest.
You pick your path.
The tree is on its own.
Do you know what I mean? The tree is on its own.
So it's actually necessary for you to, at least the people that you care about or the people that are around you, look, we're all about community. Yeah. It feels so revolutionary to talk about community and being in communion with people because we are so self-absorbed, even in the glowing and growing journey. But in the glowing and growing journey, it's a prerequisite for you to glow and grow with other people. Yeah. And that also means when it comes to displaying your character, manifesting your character, it's often done in relationship. I genuinely think that even when I think of like, for us, like fruits of the spirit and thinking about like character development from the Christian perspective, a lot of these fruits only manifest when you're in relationship or communion with people. Yeah. Like it's the opportunity to manifest those fruits, right? Seeing those relationships that you have with people as opportunities for you to demonstrate good character will also expose to you the areas where you may need to continue like changing, right? I think many of us also think of it as this is an opportunity. I'm a good person. Let me demonstrate that I'm good. When actually sometimes some people won't come to you in the form of, let me help you display that you're a good person. There are some people that will equally come and test you back.
There we go.
In that tested season, right? There will be some people that will resurface from your past that know you from the past and they'll be like, I know you as this person. I'm going to speak to you as this person, despite the fact that you're trying to change. You will be met with resistance on this journey, not even in the sense of people that are supporting you to be good, but actually people that are trying to keep you down or trying to force you to go back to a place that you don't want to be. Yeah. That too is an opportunity for you to manifest good character. Yeah. It might trigger you and you might find, okay, cool. This triggered me more than I wanted it to, or this like facilitated a response in me that I didn't like. Yeah. That is an opportunity for you to reevaluate your boundaries as well. I think sometimes we can also jump into the whole thing of I'm transformed, I'm changed. Any kind of testing, I'll be able to withstand it. Actually, no. And it's actually okay to know what your limits are as well, because
exactly.
If you are a loudmouth or if you are somebody that's prone to fighting, being in these environments, like being able to stand in these environments isn't a testimony to the fact that you have good character. Yeah. Being able to avoid the situation in the first place.
Yeah, that's very true. And also being able to communicate to people your madness. Like this, I'm not gonna lie, once we get past this point, I'm still working on myself, but I might throw hands.
I will
but
beat you.
Also, it's kind of like, I need to be able to tell people that as well. I think a lot of us go into relationships leaving people so unexpecting because we're leading with our best foot forward and we forget to show people the shadows of us.
Do you know that meme of that guy that's doing, if you F around, you will find out. The more you F around,
you will find out. The more you will
linear
find out. Graph, baby. It's a linear graph. But letting people know that, personal development isn't about false pretense. It isn't about I'm just, I'm going to tell people I'm the best person or this is the best that I can be and leave them unaware of the fact that I'm a very dynamic person. These are the parts of my past. This is what I used to be. And also this is what I'm still struggling with. And these are things that I've overcome, but push me too far. I don't know. Do you get what I mean? Letting people know that also lets them know, okay, you're a human being, right? And also these are the boundaries which I need to respect. And if I cross those boundaries, I shouldn't let it shatter my entire image and perception of this person because I know who they are, right? And I know that they've repaired some aspects of them. And the thing about reparation is it still leaves things quite fragile. And so I don't want to poke at the bear too much, and I think as friends as well, we need to understand that about each other. If you have a friend that used to be hot-tempered, it's not to say tiptoe around them, but it is to say, I understand this person. And because I love them and I care for them, I won't tempt them to be pulled back to a place where they fought so hard to leave. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful, man. Yeah. That is so, so beautiful. And actually the last pointer that I have or really want to discuss or hear from you is around the woman of good character.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. I know.
It's giving book title. It's giving book title.
Guys,
the woman of good character.
You better leave that alone.
No, I'm sure there's about 70 books.
Yeah, there probably is.
Probably.
And it's probably under the like feminine something.
Yeah.
Which is actually an interesting point around the fact that when we think of like, being a woman and being of good character is tied so intrinsically to how we can please a man. But that aside, I actually wanted to end with a discussion around what is the woman of good character, or what is the person of good character, and what does that look like for you? Because I think sometimes when folks have these discussions around like working on yourself, we often don't talk about what is the end point or what can the end goal actually look like. Right. So I would love to hear, like, for you, and just thinking about women more generally, what is the woman of character, of good character, that folks should aspire to?
This one's interesting because I think you can't prescribe what the ideal person is. I do think, I guess, getting to the base and the roots of it, I can only think of like, I think the Bible is a good reference for like, because of that's our viewpoint on the world.
Right.
Somebody who, I think somebody who knows love, knows how to love, and can receive love, right? I think as a person, and love is not just affection, and it's not just, you know, having people around you who can love you, blah, blah, blah. But it's more so, it's like what you're talking about, the fruits of the spirit. Well, the fruit of the spirit is love, and everything that comes out of that, the patience, the kind-heartedness, all of that comes from, well, if you have love, you have these things, right? I think we as women, we have struggled so much because of external things and internal things and everything we've been through to navigate what it truly means to be loved, and to love people. Our love has been given so many conditions. It's been given, we struggle to love ourselves. We believe so much that we are not enough. I think a lot of us struggle to receive love because there's this constant battle as to whether you are worthy. And I think it's important for you as a person who is growing and glowing to remember. I was at this lecture that I was at last night, the Reef lecture with Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. What an amazing woman. That woman can speak. Transformative. But she was saying that the reason why she doesn't have fear about being criticized as a writer and as somebody, you know, with a viewpoint and a moral principles is because she knows she's loved. And she doesn't need people to constantly affirm that. Wow. She knows it.
That's good.
You know, so even if she's criticized, she knows she's loved. And I think one thing that's beautiful about character development is to know that even if you slip up on this glowing and growing journey, because it will happen, you're still loved and you're still worthy of love. Surround yourself with people who can affirm that. Right. So I think the ideal woman is somebody who is comfortable in knowing, even though I fell, I will pick myself back up, and it doesn't shatter my value and who I am, what I am worth. I just need to keep trying. And allow that love to be made perfect in me. And I think it's also an openness to love other people, and that love being, I accept the fact that you are also transforming, but I'm going to help you on that journey of transforming. And what does that mean? That means forgiving. That means affirming people, holding people accountable. And that means standing up for what is right and wrong. And I guess lastly, in terms of that loving aspect, is just knowing that for you actually want to do better, that you want the people around you to feel loved, and you also want to be able to love yourself, and you want to receive the love of other people. I think so many of us have convinced ourselves, and we're going to talk about this in the next episode, to give up on love, right? To give up on love's prevailing power, and how much love can actually build, heal, keep communities together, build and keep sisterhood, but also can keep us alive, right? Because of the world we live in, so many of us have given up on it. And it's like, actually, to be a woman of good character for me is to believe in love, not just romance, but actual love. Yeah. How about you?
Gosh, that
was entirely too poetic.
Guys, Courtney's been coming with such beautiful.
I just
so
feel
transformed already.
It's so cringe.
But it's necessary. I think it's necessary. And I'm just feeling the loving in the room, guys. Can you feel the love tonight? Word to Elton John. That was a banger. We recently found out is they're living it
in
up
that hot letter, baby.
What? Anyways, Mr. John, we see you living your best life in Atlanta. Anyways, that aside, no, I totally agree. The transformative power of love, and as moist as it sounds, even the fact that we feel that it's moist to say, right? It's like, this is actually something that's necessary for people to thrive, right? And I think because of the absence of love, we've seen people devolve into such terrible human beings. On social media, like the normalization of criticizing and spreading hate and stuff like that. Those things are not normal. Those things are not normality is living in a loved world, living in a loved community. Like, I think because we have romanticized love and we have normalized like being miserable, folks think that love is something that is so unattainable, something that they don't deserve, and something that no one else deserves as well because they don't have it.
Exactly.
Whereas instead of doing all of that, you could actively try and cultivate love within your communities and that love. Like, thinking about love and giving love and the people that love me, I'm just like, damn. Part of, or not even part of, the entire reason as to why I feel the way I feel, or like the way that I move the way I move, is because I know that I actually have people that care about me. And I know that there's people that love me, and I know there's people I love as well. So I really do think that we can't underestimate the power of love, the real power of love. I think also for me, the deep desire to bring out the best in other people. Like, I think because we focus so much on ourselves and like in becoming, and again, even glowing and growing, right? We think about it as how do I bring out the best in myself? But sometimes glowing and growing is about how can I bring out the best in my sister?
That's so good.
And that's why, like, even thinking about to my sisters, thinking about community, thinking about pairing that with glowing and growing, this isn't about you, in fact. This is about you, but it's not about you at the same time, in that it's not just about you. How can you bring out the best in other people?
That's good.
If we went into character development with the mindset of this is not about me, but this is about other people, how different would it be? How different would it be, the kind of qualities that we focus on, rather than thinking about, like, you know, being a boss babe and like thinking about the way you speak and thinking about the way you present yourself? Suddenly it's about substance. Suddenly it's about content. Suddenly it's about how do I engage with somebody so that they know and feel like they're loved, and they know that they have the permission to actually be themselves, and themselves in the fullness of that authenticity. How transformative can that character development be in somebody else's trajectory? So for me, it's just that remembrance of the fact that I'm not just trying to be a good person for me. I'm trying to be a good person, point blank, period. Because there's not enough good people in the world, and other people need that. Think about how kindness transforms your life every single day. Think about like the little acts of service and kindness that people do, or just even like the little things that people do that will actually completely transform as a result of their character. I will never forget. I don't know if I've told this story already. I was having the worst day ever. And Courtney showed up at my door with a white chocolate Magnum.
I did.
Guys,
indeed.
I wept. Because I actually wept because I was having such a... You know those days? No. You know those days?
Oh, no.
Those days where you're actually like, God, is it my time to go already? Like, am I going to pack it up and go here? I was having one of those days, and just the mere act of like, oh, I know Renee's having a bad day. Let me show up with a specifically white chocolate Magnum. Oh my God. Courtney still doesn't know what that did for me that day. God, transformed my whole life. But just things like that, right? It doesn't even have to be anything particularly grand, right? We even think of love as like these grandstanding actions of like pomp and everything like that. And the fact that we've also romanticized love, like we think of love in the romantic sense and not in the platonic sense, or even in this is why for us our faith is so important, because it really expands our understanding of love and character development. It goes above and beyond romance and affection. It is a commandment. It is pivotal to everything that we do as people. How can we be loved, be loved, and show love? And I think that having that as something to aspire to in terms of character development, transformational service, and not just service in the sense of I'm gonna be a wife someday and I have to serve my husband. Being a person of servitude. How can you serve people? How can you make their day better, happier, more joyful? How can you leave this person in a better way than when you found them? Like those kind of things for me are like have transformed my character ridiculously. And I think I mentioned this in like some of our conversations, but like even for me right now, it's like, how do I serve this person? What's the best way to serve this person? How do I learn this person? How can I be better? And then how can I help others be better too?
Beautiful.
Because man, I don't know why people like living in a miserable world.
I know, you know what? I get it though. We're going to talk about it more in the next episode, but I think the reason why people would have such contention with what you just said is because servitude has been so abused.
Yeah.
And people genuinely have a sad view of service. And the fact that like to serve someone and that vulnerability just feels like you're giving someone so much power over you. And they're only going to wield that power for bad, right? I think as women especially, so overcoming that feeling and that understanding is a big hill to have to overcome. And I think that's why so many people are like, like my personal development is about me, because if I do it for other people, won't they disappoint me, or won't they use it for, evil use? And it's kind of like, fair enough. It's a valid fear to have. However, this is why we emphasize so much on surrounding yourself with people who are also dedicated to serving you, and not so that you can use them, but because they love you, right? And I think once you see the selflessness of somebody else towards you, it also makes you open to loving other people, because even if I don't gain anything from them, I have gained something as a person in my character. That's the gospel.
There's the gospel, not the ghetto gospel. What Elton John again? Like, and Tupac, I guess. But no, sisters, let us know, what are your thoughts on dealing with the trauma you caused?
Yeah.
I would love if you would drop it like it's hot in the YouTube comments, and of course we encourage transparency here and respectfulness as well as we engage in these conversations, sisters. So just a reminder, but most of the sisters we've been rocking with have been mad respectful in the comments, so we love it. But yes, please join in on the conversation on the socials of the medias. Join us literally everywhere: YouTube, Apple, Spotify. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, 5 stars. We've talked about this too many times.
Truly, please review the podcast. Rate it. Rate it so we can get other sisters plugged into the community. We're about to go fast and very far real soon. I'm telling you, we're about to go fast and far. You want to be part of the vehicle of movement, the vehicle of change, the vehicle of sisterhood. So make sure you are plugged in YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, every single social media. Everywhere.
That's it.
All the time. All day.
WhatsApp, aunties, be sharing. There's nuggets. Brothers that are also listening, be sharing. You need to listen to these nuggets of wisdom. And of course, you can come and follow us on our personal profiles, our social medias. You can follow the lovely lady here on my left at CD Boateng on Instagram. Follow her on LinkedIn. Follow her on Twitter. Follow her. Lay down really your life.
No, shut up. Lay down your life.
Follow me. Wow.
Leave your home and family.
Do you remember that song?
Leave your fishing
and your boats upon the shore.
Leave the seeds that you have sown.
Leave the crops
that you've grown. Leave the people you have known and follow me.
Oh God. Follow at CD Boateng. Of course, come and follow me on everything too at Renee Capucci.
We love to see it. If you want more hymns, let us know. We have an arsenal of them.
We really do. We actually really do.
Good times. But yes, sis, please make sure that you sign up to the mailing list as well. There are a whole bunch of announcements that are coming this November. So make sure that you are signed up, and for weekly glow and grow tips as well. So you can sign up to mysisters.com. Don't worry, we will not spam you. We will only send you good things. Is there anything else? Yes. So come back next week for the new vision announcement, because it's going to be a good one. And we need you all to take part. All right. We'll talk to you very, very soon. After the live show, we'll be back with updates. But yeah, we'll see you very, very soon. And as always, keep glowing and growing.